everybody. Before we start this interview with Tim Jacobus, I just wanted to quickly remind you all that if you would like to order a print or sketch from Tim himself, you can go and visit his website at jacobusstudios.com. Tim has a dozen prints of Goosebumps and sketches and more, and he's hoping to add more prints as it goes on. And each order gets $10 donated to his local food shelter to help out the ones in need. Now, enjoy the program. Welcome back to another episode of the Everything Horror Podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and with us is a legendary guest, as I may say. Well, at least to me, because he was part of my childhood growing up that helped with some book series, which I don't want to say just yet, but I mean, you know, it was basically the childhood of terror, basically. Like, it just didn't make you want to grab a blanket and a flashlight and read it under there. Then I don't know what you've been doing for the past 30 years or whatever age you are. Uh, so without further ado, this is the original artist for Goosebumps and everything else that we will talk about. But this is Tim. Tim, welcome aboard.
Hey, Paul, what's happening? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. And it's been one of those days, I guess. Other than that, man, I mean, what is it? Goosebumps just celebrated its 30th anniversary. There was a lot going on there. You have done numerous amount of covers, and you've even done a cover for a book series that I'll get into later on. As far as I know, you only did one for them. But anyway, enough of rambling from me. But Tim, for those that sort of just know you for just, the artwork behind the books of Goosebumps, what can you tell us about yourself? Because one last thing real quick is you did have a book entitled It Came from New Jersey, which is rare as shit to find nowadays.
Yeah, that one's real rare.
So anyway, without further ado, who is Tim?
All right, I am Tim Jacobus. I am a illustrator. I went to art school to become a book illustrator. I'm best known for doing the original classic Goosebumps series, which had 62 covers in it. I did many covers after that for Goosebumps, so I've done over 100 Goosebumps covers. Besides the Goosebumps series, I've done probably another 200 books, all not series work, but individual stuff. So I've stopped counting. Once you get to numbers like that, it doesn't matter anymore. I did lots and lots and lots of book covers. I'm over 60 years old. I started doing this when I got my first book cover when I was in my mid to late 20s. And I was lucky enough to be able to continue to do this for all these years, and it's been a lot of fun. And just to touch on this, because this is the reason I'm here, is I went to school with a bunch of really fantastic artists, and I've met some other guys over the years who are in the same business. And none of us got into this to have people know our names. We just did this because we love to do it. And it's kind of an isolated business. You stay at home and you do it on your own. And this, the notoriety that came from being with Goosebumps is is real different, and it's nice. I'm by no means am I saying that I'm complaining on any at any level, and but it's very cool to have work that people recognize.
Yes. And you know what's sad too is like well, not sad, but like honestly, when you first start to think about reading and stuff, you don't really necessarily, well, sometimes you do, but sometimes you kind of forget like there's an artist involved. Like I know, like when you're a kid, you're just like, oh, it's a book, like it is cover, oh my god. Like I remember the first Goosebumps book I ever picked up was The Return of the Mummy, and it was just the cover art alone. But after that, it was like, with R.L. Stein and writing, you kind of just get lost in your own little world. But I guess what I'm trying to also say is, sometimes you kind of forget to even look at who is the artist, so you can appreciate what else they have done.
Yeah, yeah, and what was nice is if, let's just, in an alternate universe, R.L. Stein only writes one or two Goosebumps books, he would have never bothered to figure out who I was. It was just that after, month after month, cover after cover, all of a sudden you've got a little art gallery going on your bookshelf, and that's when that's when us artists start to get some attention. We're just drawing attention to the books, not to ourselves. And all we want you to do is get your attention good enough to get you to pick that thing up. And if I can get you to pick that book up, I've done my job. It's RL's job after that.
Well, that's fair enough. And you do have some like interesting artwork covers, which you have a funny story behind one or two. I remember one specifically, but real quick, since you brought up an interesting topic here, real quick. So one of the books that I also know you from, because of the fact of it reminded me of Goosebumps in a way of the cover art alone, but the cover style is what I should say. But I mean, you doing it too is also a plus. I mean, it was great to see your name in that too, but it was oh god, I'm probably gonna butcher the publisher's name, but it's like Bard Press. They did a series, 4-book series so far for Frightland, and
Yes,
you
yes,
did one of them.
I
And
did one of the covers for that. Yes.
yeah. Oh man, oh crap, I can't even remember the title right now. But it was basically the
Yeah,
Bigfoot one.
I think it was called The Wild Man, or the character on the cover was the Wild Man, and it was a Sasquatch, Bigfoot type character. And yeah, I loved working with those guys. I know that they were trying to get that thing going, and I know they put out a number of covers. And you never know, maybe down the road we'll be doing another. But that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah, and shout out to them too, because that was great. I actually loved it too. So obviously, I got all 4 books for
Oh,
the
good,
time being.
cool. Yeah, I didn't
Um,
get a chance to read them, so that's good to hear. I only, usually when I'm working on these things, the stories aren't done, and I can get a synopsis about what it's about, or sometimes I get a chapter. So that's great to hear that it delivered.
yeah, oh yeah. Speaking of which, like from what you just said, so they sent us like a little preview of it, kind of unfinished. Like the grammar wasn't the greatest, but they let us use this much information, like a chapter, I want to say, or 2 chapters, and we were able to write a little review for them. So it was nice to even do that. But I mean, just the fact that like once again, I like your name was right there, and I'm just like, like I'm on board now. So I
So
just
is that
love your work.
so did they let you? So how did you get to put your 2 cents worth in? Because you were part of the fundraising, or because you run this podcast, or how did they reach out to you to get your your opinion?
I actually reached out to them because besides the podcast, we do have like a little site where we like to review and
Oh, that's cool.
review things.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so they actually wrote back to me and basically said, "Yeah, we can show you, but just know this is not all the way finished. Like, the grammar is
Yeah, yeah.
not touched up." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm not too worried about that, but I would love to help you guys out." So yeah, so that's how they basically did it. They sent me like that small little piece.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm assuming though, going off of that with like the little synopsis or chapters, is that how it worked with you though? Like, so, I guess what I'm trying to say is that how you would create the covers? It's just by the synopsis?
Yeah. So when Goosebumps got started, the only book that was semi-complete was the very first one, which was called Welcome to Dead House. And RL had gotten kind of a jump on that one before I was selected to do that cover. And so there was a good solid, full chapter for me to read and get a feel for it. As we got going, being that all I have to do is create the cover, he's got to write a whole book. I can move a little faster than he can. So I caught up to him pretty fast. So actually, he would just give me, a paragraph, a couple of sentences, always gave me the title because he can't work. He always creates the title first. And that's what I got to work with. And that's not, it's not typical. Usually there's a book that's relatively complete, done before the artist gets involved when you're working with a standard publisher. But we were moving quickly, and that's what I got. And from an artistic point of view, that's a kind of a better way to go, because the more information that you hand me, the more specific information that you give me, I'm compelled to put that information in because you wrote it. This is, my job is to get it as close to that writing as possible. So, yeah, it was, so without all that detail, it kind of freed me up to, kind of create a lot of the stuff on my own. And I think it worked. Only a couple times did we go off the rails, and I went in one direction and the story went in another.
Perfect. And kind of going into that, speaking of which, so one of the funny tales that I remember from live stream thing that you did with RL is you were mentioning the cover for Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes, where you
Right.
had one of them picking his nose.
Yeah, the original gnome was picking his nose, and when I first turned it in, everybody, like it went over big. There was no complaints. Everybody was laughing. That's hilarious. We love that. And as it got closer to the time to go to print and get these books delivered, somebody stepped in and said, "Listen, I like it too, but we are sending this into all the middle schools and grammar schools all around the country. So maybe we don't want to be encouraging nose picking." And so I pulled his finger out of his nose and put it upside his head, so he just looks like he's scratching his head now. That's not a big change. That was pretty easy, so I got away good.
Okay, yeah, that's always a good one. I want to say the other one that you mentioned, and I think this was the last one that I remember hearing, but it was say cheese and die.
Say cheese and die. Yeah, that was the story I'm going to tell. I didn't find out about this until just a few years ago. So when I created it, I thought it was, I thought it was one of the. I still think it's a good piece of artwork. Don't get me wrong. I really like the art. I think it came out good. So for anybody who doesn't quite remember the Goosebumps stuff by title, it was Say Cheese and Die was about the kids found a camera, and if you got your picture taken with the camera, bad things happen to you. So the art director and I discussed what we were going to do, and so again, this was pre-cell phone days, so we all took pictures with cameras, and I decided, let's make a Polaroid, and we'll have an image of a family who's out barbecuing, except in the picture they're all dead and they're skeletons. So say cheese and die. This will work, and as we discussed, we're like, yeah, that's great, let's do that. And that was also, I forget what book number it was. It was one of the early covers. Maybe it was book 4, but I started to notice that these weren't just scary books. These also had a comic element to them. There was something funny to them. And of course, as soon as I heard the title, Say Cheese and Die, that's a half a joke right there to start with. So I started to go, okay, I get it. Instead of just being pure horror, let's keep these things, try to make them a little bit lighter. And so when I did Say Cheese and Die, I thought I kind of like nailed it. And so fast forward 20 years, and I'm with RL, and I think we were at a bookstore the first time I heard this story, and they delivered that painting to him, and he's like, "Wow, that's really a nice piece of artwork, but there's no family of skeletons barbecuing anywhere in my story." And he's going, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And they said, "Well, it's a lot harder for Tim to change the artwork than it is for you to write something else. So you need to write something else." So when you go back and read the book, he's annoyed as anything, but somewhere in the middle of the book, he had to put in a dream sequence, and that says, there was a family of skeletons. And so, yeah, he was annoyed. I always thought it was such a good piece. Now I don't look at that art so fondly anymore.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good one. You have to go back and put in the dream sequence. It's been a while since I've actually read these books, but like with some of the newer ones now, I've been kind of reading them too, and going back to some of the old ones. Right. Speaking of which, I just refinished watching the original Goosebumps TV series.
Yeah, it's way more fun watching them now than when they first came out in the 90s.
Yes and no, I guess. Like back in the day.
Well, okay, so that's true. Okay, I'm gonna change it because we're both looking at it from a different perspective. You were young.
Yep.
And when they first came out, I was a grown man when they first came out, and they were fine. I liked them. They were cool, but that was that was, let's call it state of the art TV. That was just what it was. Now to watch them 30 years later, you go, oh, they hardly had any money. The budget is, the clothes, the budget, the dialogue. It's fantastic. It's such a time capsule about what was going on back then, and I love watching them now.
Yeah, like good example would be like Welcome to Dead House. Like that was a brilliant episodes, yeah. I should say, because they did them in 2 parts back then.
Exactly. Yeah, all of them. There's something good in all of them.
Oh yes. The only one that threw me off a little bit was Night of the Living Dummy 3, because I feel like the dummy that they had for that didn't match the cover for like the way Slappy looked. Yeah. It was kind of like, who is this?
Yeah. Well, that happened in a number of them, because again, there was a real budget limitation. And when I'm creating the art on the covers, I had nobody said there was going to be a TV series. So I'm not thinking, oh, don't make something that flies, because they're not going to be able to make anything fly on that budget. So they had to, either alter the story or alter my artwork to get it to work. But that's cool too, because I like the idea that, some of the stories are different than the book. some of the TV shows are different than the book.
Yeah, it was almost like they took their own take on it and
Yeah, yeah,
spin it around. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it worked. I mean, it's perfect when creators are have that freedom to really put in their own 2 cents, as I may say.
Yep.
So it's fun, and so I guess Tim, like, so how did you even like get into like the I get the book world of like doing covers. Like, did you reach out to publishers first, or like?
Well, so when I went to art school, I knew I wanted to do illustrations, and illustrations were, they were again, a lot more publications, a lot more magazines. So kind of at the beginning, I was always thinking, well, maybe magazines. I always wanted to do album covers. And then I thought books too, but I was really, again, I was thinking album covers would be where it would be really cool. And when I got into my final year at art school, they were always changing professors and teachers. And one of my instructors who came in was a book illustrator, and he did, sci-fi, fantasy, horror stuff. And his name's Paul Stinson. The guy's amazing, and just mind-blowing artwork. And when I was seeing what he was doing, I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do. And he took a liking to me, which was great. And he guided me quite a bit at the beginning, and gave me pointers, and it, it went from something that was that was outside or unattainable to something that he was doing and talked about it as, this is what I do every day. So it took on a, oh, this is doable. This is real. This is not this isn't a fantasy. So that's what got me sparked. He actually, right at graduation, he said, okay, this is what I want you to do. Get your portfolio together. And where I grew up and where I went to art school is it's less than an hour outside of Manhattan. It's not far out. And he said, what I want you to do is get your portfolio together. Goes on, I forget, it was a random weekday. We're going into the city on Wednesday. I have to go see an art director. I have to deliver a painting. And I want you to come with me, bring your portfolio, and the art director will take a look at your portfolio. But that's not the point to going. I want you to just come and watch and go, oh, this is how I want to show you how I interact with an art director, what it's like to go in, what art directors say. He goes, you're not going to get a job. This isn't a job interview. And, just it's part of the experience and making you more comfortable. So when you go to an art director's office on your own, it won't be the first time you're there, and you'll be a little bit more comfortable. And it was, it was very enlightening, to see the most mind-blowing or intimidating thing about going into this guy's office was, back then, no digital art. So all art was on canvases and illustration boards, and, everything was tangible. And all around this guy's office were fantastic artwork, just leaning against, on the floor, leaning against the wall in piles, 10 deep, and, and 10 this way, and then 10 down the other. There were literally hundreds of pieces of artwork in his office, and just going down and looking at them, everyone was greater than the next one. So all right away, you're just going, oh my God, the talent that is just coming through this one man's office is mind-boggling. So the guy looked at my portfolio, and basically, he said a lot of really nice things, and it was very helpful. But the takeaway was, okay, you did good in art school. These are nice pieces, but it looks like a art school portfolio. So if you want to come into the city and look like a real illustrator, all your art has to look like a if paperback book cover. You can't show them something and then make them go, oh, well, I can kind of imagine that what it's going to look like. So size, dimensions, everything has to look like a book cover. So I went home after that and spent a long time. It probably took me, you know, I think I saved one painting out of my school portfolio, and then I did a whole bunch of other ones, and it probably took me 18 months to 2 years to get those together, and then went back to the city and tried again, and eventually got that first book cover. So going back to what your original question was, that was, having that instructor was a real linchpin in getting me started.
Wow. Now, so that's a great way to start it to get into the business. Now, when it came down though to Scholastic looking for the cover artist, uh, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Like, did you hear about it somehow, or did they somehow find you to reach out?
So by the time Goosebumps came out, I had been doing book covers for a couple of years. Not a lot, probably 5 years or less. But I had worked with people at Scholastic, and I had done a few covers for them, and I had proved myself to be consistent. My artwork was, like there wasn't like, oh, that one's good and that one kind of sucks and that one doesn't look like like my work was consistent and I was dependable. So when Goosebumps came along, I had just finished up another cover. I had done a lot of single jobs, no series work, and I had done some kids books and I had done some mystery books, and they said, well, you kind of know how to do the mystery and you kind of know how to do the kids. I know you haven't done any horror, but this doesn't seem like it's an impossibility. So they included me with a handful of other people to discuss, okay, let's see who we can pick for this. And they narrowed it down to two guys, me and another artist named Jim Thiessen, and I got a chance to do book number one, Welcome to Dead House, and he did book number two, Stay Out of the Basement. And so then when they got those two, and they said, now you got to remember, there were no grand plans for Goosebumps at the beginning. Nobody thought it was going to be a big seller. So the idea that him and I were, trying out for, the cover artist, it was the only thing we were going to win was maybe doing 2 more covers or 4 more covers. It wasn't like, oh, this is going to go on for years and years and years and make millions of dollars. So when they got the 2 back, there was a real fear that the Goosebumps stuff was going to be too scary. And the only real difference between my art and Jim's art was I used all those saturated colors. And, that became, very typical in the Goosebumps series. And I had liked using all the rich, purples and greens and blues and yellows, like where typical horror stuff is very muted and can be real dark. And if you look at that Stay Out of the Basement cover, it's not as vibrant. And so at the last minute, they said, yeah, you know what? I like the colors that Tim used. Let's let him do the couple of covers that we need for Goosebumps. And so, my use of color is kind of what got me started.
Very nice. I'll touch on you for a minute about colors. Like one of my favorite covers that you did is Werewolf of Fever Swamp. I
Yeah.
just love the vibrance of the green, the gray, the blue, like everything about it just is I love it. Like I just love it. I'm trying to remember. Haunted Mask is a good one. With the way you use some of the darker colors to go into the vibrant green to make the mask more like realistic looking.
Yeah.
And I love R.L. Stein's story behind that story, based off his son or something like that, where he got his Halloween mask stuck. So how did R.L. put it? Instead of helping him like a father should have, he quickly ran to jot it down so he wouldn't forget. I love it.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So Tim, real quick too. Is there any covers of Goosebumps? I mean, probably say Cheese and Die is one of them, possibly for this question. But if you could go back to one of the Goosebumps covers, which one would like to, if you could, change it? Like if you
Oh,
feel,
that's
yeah,
that's a good question. Um, One of the ones that I'd like to redo. So there is a book out that might be well. Again, it's another one that's hard to find, and there's a book that came out last year called "The Art of Goosebumps," and it's a collection of all the covers that I did for the Goosebumps series. But the part that's new to the book owner or the book reader is all the sketches for that I did for each cover. So I always did 3 different concepts for each of the covers, and they would pick one, and I would do that cover. So there's in an alternate universe, there's 2 other possible Goosebumps covers that could have appeared on any one of the Goosebumps books. Um, and most of the times we pick the one I like the best anyway. But the one that I wish I could have redone, and I didn't do any other, like they did pick the best of the sketches, but the one Go Eat Worms. And, like now I know how I would do it. I would do it differently, and the worm would be way more up front. One of the worms would be way more up front and way more menacing, and I think it could have been way more dramatic. So that's one that just pops into my head.
Go Eat Worm. That's a good one. That one had some. Oh God, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say the worms had almost like a purplish.
That's it. Yeah, they're purple worms coming out of a notebook, and yeah. But I think like the notebook part was fine, and having the other worms there, but there should have been one more that was the dominant one that was in your face, and I think I could have made it slimy and all that good stuff that makes for a good Goosebumps covers.
That's fair enough. There a Goosebumps cover, or it could be regular, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. Like, is there a Goosebumps cover from either original or like any of the other ones that you did that you just had a blast doing that? Just like you would look at it and say, you know what, I really like the way this came out.
I always like so it's the same process even now when I do them, where at the beginning you get an idea and it starts out in pencil, and you'll go, okay, these concepts are good, and it's not until you start working on them on the final part and you're doing all the final rendering where they really start to come to life. And it's halfway, 3/4 of the way through the art where that's when you can start to go, oh yeah, this is really working. And that's when I get the most excited about them. And it's before you finish is when you're the most excited about it. and then you finish it off, and it's already starting to taper off a little bit, even as you're finishing up the painting. So I there's it's super rare that I go, oh, that piece I don't like at all. I don't have any of those in the Goosebumps series. But there's a bunch of them that I like. And, if you ask me what my favorite is, it's going to change every time you and I talk. If we talk, 6 times over the course of the year, I'm going to say 6 different books every time we talk. So right now, off the top of my head, I like The Blob That Ate Everyone. Yeah, I like that, and one of the reasons why I like that, which goes back to what I was just talking about, was when I did the pencil sketches for that, it looked more like a baked potato than anything scary. And I'm going, well, this isn't working. There's nothing scary about a baked potato coming down the street. And so it wasn't until we got the colors all going and got the pinks and the veins and all the gooey stuff coming out of his mouth before it actually came to life.
Perfect, man. Perfect. I love it already. Speaking of which, we need to get somebody to now write a scary story with baked potatoes. I think that would be amazing. That would be amazing. That would be. Oh man. I know I said the Werewolf of Fever Swamp and the Haunted Mask are some of my favorites. I can't even. I love the Blob That Ate Everyone too. The way the Blob looked so menacing too. And we were just talking how you wished the purple worms had a dominant one. So it would have been more interesting to see what this dominant worm would have been in that type of perspective. God, what's another good one that I used to love too? I can see it in my head, but what is the name of it? It was
Tell me what it is. I'll tell me what it looks like, and I can I'll pull out the name.
It was like aliens in a bathroom, like slugs or something in the
that was Monster Blood 4.
Thank you, Monster
Blood. Yeah, that was actually the last one in the classic series, number 62, and I like those guys. But that's it. That's why when I think about Go Eat Worms, I'm thinking more like that one, where there's a whole bunch of those little guys everywhere in the bathroom, but there's a main one in the front where you can really see what he's all about. So,
yeah, I love it. I guess Tim, going forward, so. Obviously, you still sort of do covers. I don't know how often anymore because obviously, time change. Everybody kind of gets busy with their own lives and stuff. But, I guess are you still looking for project to work on? I know we kind of mentioned Frightland. The good one that you did one cover for. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is are you still trying to do some more illustration for covers?
Yeah, I've never stopped doing covers. I just finished up a piece just recently. I've got a few more that are getting ready to get started. It's nice now because I can pick and choose what I want to do. But no, I've never lost the excitement to do them. It's just not the same, it's not the same grind as what RL and I used to do. I'm not putting out one a month, but I'm easily doing 2 pieces, doing one every 2 months. And but it's a little bit of everything. Some album covers, some cards, there's still some book covers, but it's a little bit of everything, and that's kind of exciting too because different formats and but everybody's still when I get someone reaching out, they're still looking for that classic Goosebumps style. That's what they want it to look like. Like I said, I've done hundreds of books that don't even look like Goosebumps, but when people reach out now, that's that's the style they want me to reproduce.
Well, I mean, I can't really not say I don't blame them, but I mean,
Oh,
but
I don't blame them either. Yeah, no, I get it. I 100% get it.
yeah, I mean, like I was telling you a little bit, like, when I saw that you were part of that Frightland and you were doing one cover, and I just looked at all the covers, even though you only did one of them, but between all 4 covers that they have,
There
it
was
was
some
just
good ones
like,
in there. Yeah,
oh yeah, it was amazing. Like how could you not get excited? It was almost
yeah.
like Christmas as a kid all over again. It was just like yes. Uh, I mean, so speaking of which, so yeah, you were saying you and RL had one coming out like every month. Now, how did that work for like you too? So was Scholastics wanting you to have a certain cover done per month, or like how did he want?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
It was a real, days of the week, were very important. RL had to have, he had to be starting on such and such a date. He had to have this much of the book done by this time. We began our discussions at this week, and then the art had to be produced and had to be finished on this day. And that was not negotiable. Like it had to be done. Like if the day was Friday, it needed to be done on Friday, and I needed to get that thing packaged up and over to Federal Express, and it had to be handed to the art director the next morning, and because the next one was coming. So it was you couldn't fall behind. And again, RL had the heavier lift, but it was there was a lot going on, and I did more covers at that time. Um, for other book series. So I was working on Goosebumps, which was a regular thing, and then I was doing other covers at the same time. So yeah, it's a job. You get up and you got to make the donuts, and yeah, you had to get stuff done, and but it was never. I've done a lot of different jobs growing up and as a kid, and even as an adult, where there's hard jobs out there, and sure, there were times where it got stressful, or you had to put in a lot of extra hours to get something done. But again, I'm in a house and there's a roof over my head, and I've dug some ditches before. I've carried bricks on a as a laborer on a mason, with a mason. I know what hard work is, and this isn't that hard. So it sometimes it was, there was a strain to it, but it's not hard.
perfect, perfect. So uh, going into your art a little bit. So you mentioned sketches and stuff. So is that how you always do your artwork? Like you start with sketches first, and then I don't know what your process would be from there. I know some nowadays they sketch first and then they scan it or something to get it into the Photoshop to make it pop that way.
Yep.
I mean, do you prefer what some people like now, which is they just do everything on the computer?
Yeah. So um, because the Goosebumps series was happening in the 90s, digital art really hadn't become something that everybody could do. It was in its infancy, and only bigger companies had the ability or the technology to do it, and it wasn't something that was affordable to any of us. So I learned how to draw and paint, the traditional way. And the original Goosebumps artwork was acrylic paintings, uh, 20 inches by 20 inches, combination of brush and airbrush. Airbrush gave it that nice polished look to it, and smoothed everything out. And but then, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, digital art came along, and the publishers actually gave us kind of an ultimatum, saying, "Listen, you got a couple of years to get it together, but as of this date, which was 2 years down the road, all your art has to be digital, because it's so much easier from a publishing and printing point of view to have your art not be tangible. And, it takes out a number of pain in the neck steps to getting things done. So, I had to relearn what I was doing, but I always wanted my digital art to look like my traditional art. And the thing that I found was the best was to do that, what you described as your first example, where I start outside the computer with a pencil on my desk with paper, and I start to draw the same way I used to draw when I was doing Goosebumps, same way they taught me to draw when I was in art school. And I construct my images that way. I get them to a point where they're pretty tight. And then I scan them into the computer. And I use Photoshop, and I use one of those Wacom tablets, which is it's a surface, and I have this pen, and so I'm still drawing and moving my hands in the same fashion I would be moving them when I would do it traditionally. So the art that is now digital still has a real traditional feel to it, because I'm doing a lot of the things the same way I used to do them. The thing that's wonderful is the undo button. There was no undo button in the airbrush. So so now, if the job is commercial, meaning if you hired me to do your album cover or your book cover, it's going to be digital art. But if you're hiring me to paint you a painting that you're going to hang up in your living room, well, I'll go back and do traditional art, because it's going to be something that hangs on your wall, and it warrants to do it the old-fashioned way.
Fair enough. Yeah, so this would be a good example. So, like, I'm recollecting Goosebumps, just because
Tough ones out there, right?
Huh?
Some tough ones to find, right?
I actually have all the original ones.
All right.
I have a list thing going on, so I just got all the originals. I have some of the Give Yourself. I'm missing some of the Series 2000 stuff like that. I really got a list online that book that I need to complete my collection kind of thing. And but the first thing I really wanted to tackle was the original, because once again, your artwork, and it was around my childhood, so it was like that nostalgia feeling. So now, as with the new artist, I can't even think of his name right now, and anyway, that does the covers for Goosebumps now, which he doesn't do bad, but
he's excellent.
Yeah, and well, I don't want to say bad, but I see what he's doing. Like, he's keeping it nice and simple. He just had the whatever the villain is, and that's gonna be told in the story, and that's all you get. Where you kind of made it more like, here's the creature, and then here's the atmosphere behind
and here's where he lives. Yeah.
So, but you can appreciate both forms, right? So, like, you can definitely tell something where it's digitally drawn, I would say, like with the newer covers, versus like the original, where you could almost tell it was sketched, and just the old, I don't want to call it the old way, but basically the way that we all used to
call
do.
it the old way.
But I think, I don't know, I think digital, like the way digital things are nowadays, it doesn't have the same effect to me as if it was the old way being done.
There's so I, because I do both, I can see, I can see both sides of the coin, and the practicality of digital, it just makes the business roll and go smoother. But there's nothing as cool as there is a, like, you can't really see anything in the room here, but I have originals hanging up on the wall, and I can take it down and hold it in my hand. And if you wanted it or I wanted to give it to you, when I handed it to you, you would have the original. And it was a tangible thing that you could hold and hang up. And there was only one. There was one original. In the digital world, it's all mushy. Like, yeah, I can make hundreds of the same thing, thousands, millions, and they all look exactly the same. And you can't tell, other than if I certified it, and like an NFT, and then it becomes that. But that's not the same. The tangible hold in your hand thing. That's cool.
And speaking of which, perfect way to also add to what you just said, like as if you were handing me something. So when Frightland were doing their crowdfund, they actually had the original drawing that you did for that cover.
Oh yeah,
of the
yeah,
Wild
that's
Man
right,
of,
right. I forgot. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody did that tier, but I hope they did. So, because I mean that would have been nice piece of uh a treasure, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, that's it. And again, that's a tangible piece of art. It is the sketch that I used before I scanned that got scanned into the computer before I colored it. So yeah, that was a cool thing to auction off.
For sure. And you know what? I'll just mention it too, since we're kind of talking about sketches and prints now. Is so you have your own website for your studio and stuff like that, where you offer prints and uh, custom sketches or something,
Yep,
or like you request a sketch is what I
yep,
should
yep.
say. So like that was one cover I haven't seen yet for print, but I understand Goosebumps is the well known one. It's
Yeah,
not
and
like Frightland.
to do it the way I do it. It's expensive to add new prints. I mean, I would love to add new prints every day, every week, but it's expensive. So I can only add so many. I have to sell so many, and then when we reach the threshold, then I can afford to buy two more. So I try to add two at a time. It only happens a couple of times a year. I think we're up to a dozen different Goosebumps covers. Yeah, I hope to branch out and get some other ones up there, and to keep on expanding it. But yeah, it's a nice way for people to get themselves an inexpensive uh, piece of my artwork, and then I do hand sign everything before it goes out, so you get a custom autograph on that print, and yeah, something nice to hang on the wall.
And not just that, it comes in a beautiful envelope and a beautiful protector for your little art print that you send out or
Yes,
print.
yes.
So
And and then the real motivator for me, at least, to get the whole thing going
I know where
is,
you're going with this. Yep.
yeah, is that $10 from every sale goes to the purchase of food for the food bank down the street. And the one that I just delivered on Saturday was the biggest delivery we ever had. And I always post pictures of the truck with all the food in the back, so you can see where that we're not just handing over a check. We're actually loading the truck and getting stuff. And yeah, the people at the food bank are very happy. And we've so what has happened, and I'm not saying it's because I'm doing this, but the food bank is growing, and they used to only offer services to our town because they didn't have enough food to offer it up. And now we've got enough food coming in now that they've opened it up to the whole county. So people from surrounding towns can come, and they're helping out many, many more families. get some food. And that's just that's a nice thing. So you can get yourself a print, and you can help do something good.
You can't argue with that. I mean, it's like a win-win no matter what,
There you
no
go.
matter how you look at it, and you're helping people eat. And unfortunately, in this time of age, you kind of
Well, that's how it got started. It was during the pandemic, and we all wondered for a while what was going to happen, especially at the beginning. And my business wasn't, really, it was affected, but not in any major way. And then you start to see how many people were showing up to places like the food bank, and that the lines got long, and people who had never needed assistance all of a sudden did. And I was like, well, you know, got to be able to do something. And I've been actually, I didn't think we would. Not that I didn't know Goosebumps was popular, but I didn't know we would sell a decent amount of prints. And, like you say, we filled up more than my pickup was more than full this last month. So it's nice to be able to do something.
yeah, I can't even top that. So I'm just gonna stop right there. I mean, it like everybody was affected during pandemic. Well, some people. I know some people did have to work it, but they got the disaster pay and stuff like that. Yeah, it was what a weird year. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I ended up ordering the Werewolf of Fever Swamp from you, just because of the fact that $10 was for this, $10 went to help the need, as I put it, which is like what better way to really support anybody really for something like that versus kind of how you were saying it's not like you were just pocketing change and just you being like
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
And like I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going with it, but it was just basically like it's just a nice way to really be like, you know what? Because of what he's doing, I want to buy more. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, at some point, Tim, you will be seeing another order come
Oh, that's
through.
cool. And that's nice because we started the thing. I just made up a number and said, okay, we're gonna charge this much for posters, and we'll give $10, and it we don't make a lot of money here. It's just like, oh man, and my son helps me a great deal, and it's him and we do everything. And so I'm glad that that it is really helpful when people buy multiples, because then we can make some money. So yeah, that's great. So I'm glad you feel that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know you were just talking about adding new prints, and I think one of the new ones you just added was the the Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns or something like that.
Right, Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns and Shocker on Shock Street.
Okay, so that was the other new one. I thought I was there before, so I couldn't remember what was new. You have so many good ones that I was just like, I just want them all.
Well, that's funny too, because I get tons of people order, and then I send out an email that says your order's on the way, and then people write back and go, what one I really want is, name your cover, and it's just like, yeah, I know, I'm trying, man. I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. We'll get them. We'll hopefully, if everything goes well, they'll all be there at some point.
That would be amazing.
We're a long way. We're a long way away. Well, no, not really. We got a dozen under our belt, and there's 62, so it's not impossible.
You got like a third there, so we're all good. I mean, yeah, it would take some time. It might actually help you too, since you're talking about maybe helping you get money too, in a way of like helping the need at the same time. Have you thought about maybe doing like a print bundle? Like do a bundle for them?
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I haven't structured that, but that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
I just
think, idea.
Yeah, I just think it's usually better that way because, like, sometimes it might even help you in the long run of getting more prints. I believe would be the best way that I'm trying to say this. But yeah, I mean, it's a great way to uh, get more people's attention too. So it's
Yeah,
like, oh, I can get, let's just say, all 12 for this amount.
right, right, right.
Now I have them all.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a good idea. No, I didn't even. Yep. Well, see, look what just came out of this. Now I got something to think about.
wow, I'm glad. I'm glad. And you'll have to let me know when Frightland you get a print
Okay,
too, because I'd love that
there you
one.
go. All right.
And stuff like that. Well, Tim, I don't, I'm kind of drawing blanks here, and it's been a day and a half already here. So, um, is there anything that I haven't really mentioned that you would like to talk about for a minute? Like, is there something that you are just itching to maybe mention here with me?
Um,
Like,
just again, I touched on it at the beginning. I'm so humbled by the fact that we're 30 years past the start date of Goosebumps, and you're a grown man now, and you read that stuff as a kid, but you're still interested, and people are still interested. It's not just you. This isn't an anomaly, and the fact that people are still like Goosebumps and are excited by it, and it holds a special place in your memory. That's really awesome, and that doesn't go unnoticed and unappreciated.
oh, thank you for everything that you've done to help us get scared as we were younger anyway with the cover. So it helped out a lot. But just because of you saying growing older and stuff like that, so I gotta now say this. So anyway, I'm a father of almost a 3-year-old daughter, and so that's one reason why I wanted to start to recollect Goosebumps again, because dumbass me sold all my original copies a long time ago or something like that because of a move. My family was divorced. Something happened, so I let my Goosebumps go. But anyway, the point to this is like the fact that R.L. Stein is also still writing, and he's always one of my favorite kid authors. You always wanted to grab the next thing, and like as you were saying, and we were saying kind of earlier, you guys were just bombing out like one a month, and that had to just been. I don't want to say an eyesore, but man, that had to have been a pretty
We were
rad
cranking.
time.
We were cranking.
But the point to this is like, now, because my parents and my grandparents that bought these Goosebumps books for me, I can now do like the same thing with my daughter. I can almost enjoy the same moment of like my parents, giving me that book to be like, oh, I want to read this, because let's all be honest, right? Like little kids don't want to read, but if you put something like Goosebumps or something that they really enjoy in front of them, they will read.
Absolutely.
So I guess Tim, like to kind of help wrap things up too, is for those that are trying to start out to be an artist or even become an illustrator or anything to that in the art world, what is maybe a couple key pointers that you would suggest for them to start off with taking that first step into that process?
So it's kind of like, so things that I did, 40 years ago to get into the business aren't relevant anymore, because it's a digital world, and you got cell phones and social media, and you can get your work seen in many different ways. The one thing that you can do, it's just like anything else. All right, we're going to equate getting started in doing getting your art career going to, I need to lose 10 pounds. And you gotta, and it's that
Okay.
simple. You gotta go, okay, I don't want to, but when I get home from work, I'm going to put on my sneakers and I'm going to go for a walk. And I'm going to, just at the beginning, I'm going to walk a mile. But I'm going to do it every day. And you got to, and then you go, okay, hey, mile's not so bad. I'm going to walk 2 miles. And I do that every day. And you have to approach your art in that same fashion. You have to carve out specific time every day and do that thing and make it part of your life. And if you do that, it's incredible how fast you'll get better, because you're not waiting long periods of time and things that are gelling in your head. You're going to sit down later on that day and advance on those things. And at the beginning, it's really tremendous, because you get better in leaps and bounds at the beginning that that are very impressive. So treat your art like you would anything else. If you're an Olympic athlete or anything else, carve out the time, and you will see a difference very, very fast.
All right, I'm not going to touch that.
And it doesn't have to be a wild amount of time. I'm serious. 15 minutes, a half an hour. Start that small, and you will see a difference in a month.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that. That's good advice already. So, all right, let me start this 10-mile hike. I mean, I'm sorry. I should probably not start that right away, because then I'll probably not get anywhere really fast, because I'll probably just want nap time all the time. But that's all right. Well, you know what? I almost forgot about this, Tim. So this will be my last thing. So recently, R.L. Stine came out with the new adult comic Stuff of Nightmares.
Yeah.
You actually did a variant cover for it.
I did.
Which I actually just picked up at a comic book shop that I ordered from. So just real quick, like, what would the process with that? You and R.L. Stine again to.
Yeah, well, somebody, so the art director at Boom Comics, who's the publisher, had been working with RL, and he was like, well, let's, RL has been he always is there. He's in my court. He'll mention my name to people, and the people at Boom bit, and they gave me one. This is the second variant cover that I've done for RL through Boom, one for Stuff of Nightmares, and the other series was called Scare School. And I love working with RL, and it's the same setup. He's, the book's not done. He gives me a synopsis. I come up with 3 ideas, and away we go. And it's like old times.
Amazing. So I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really recorded an episode on Stuff of Nightmares yet with just a couple friends that have read it, and I kind of want to just because of this, but I'll just throw it right here on this recording with you. So I am sort of curious, but at the same time, like, I don't really want to know the answer, but I want to know the answer. But it's what do they call him, Mr. Nightmare, in the story, I should say. So as we kind of gradually started to unveil more features of Mr. Nightmare, like with the glasses, this and that, sort of even the structure of his, I'm just going to say face, even though it is kind of like more like a silhouette. Yep. But, God, for some reason, when I was looking at this, I was like, did R.L. Stine kind of make him kind of be like he is Mr. Nightmare? Like, what I'm saying?
Self-portrait?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I now I have to go back and look. I don't know.
Because
that's interesting.
Well, I've seen some recent pictures of him, pictures with him holding like Night of the Squawker, his latest Goosebumps Slappy World book.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And then I just happened to just dive right into this, and I was just like, I'm like, wow, like, why do I feel like this is supposed to be him?
Yeah. Huh. Uh, I would be surprised. That's not his style, but maybe. So the original. No, that's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to go with that.
We'll just put a great big question mark on it and say we'll return to this in the
Hey,
future.
listen, we'll go with a big could be.
It could be, yeah. I don't know why, but nonetheless, I mean, I loved it. I loved the cover art that you did for it, and I'm just glad to be able to actually own a copy of it now. So, so once again, Tim, like, thank you for your time. I appreciate you making time to even do this to talk with me, especially as a like a fan of Goosebumps and stuff like that. So it's as I may say, it's an honor to really talk to you right now.
I appreciate it, Paul. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. And if there's ever anything that I can help you with in the future, of like, I don't know, if there's anything
If I need to promote something, I'll reach out to you, and maybe we can jump online again, and you can help me out. But
yeah, I'd love
I
to.
appreciate the airtime.
All right, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and for everybody else that is listening, well, don't let the gummy worms eat you in your bed, because Tim will just probably figure out a way to draw that into a book cover or something. So, have a good night for everybody, and Tim, once again, thank you again. And
all right, you take care.
for the last thing, everybody, stay scared.